So guys, I bought the S1ii. Now it's not even here yet, so this isn't going to be a review or even first impressions, but I just want to explain the thought process of why I thought this camera would be best for me, because it's not a perfect camera. I mean, I still love Micro Four Thirds. I still use my GH7 all the time. And I guess maybe that is the first reason I want to talk about, is that despite how incredible the S9 is, how incredible the S5 Mark II is, the S5 II was never my A camera, really. I mean, it was sometimes like, oh, we're doing an interview or a sit down thing. But whether it was a short film or a wedding or getting product shots or B-roll, it was just always the GH7, because the S5 II was limited in things like frame rates and things like that. So we'll talk about the S5 II a little bit more at the end on some of my reasoning for this purchase. So the first thing for me is just 4K 60 with no crop. It's just my most commonly used mode. It's something I use at every single wedding, every single week. I use it for B-roll, I use it for weddings, I use it for all these moments. And 4K 60 is important because you don't know when I mean, first off, it just makes detail shots so much better, so much quicker. If I want a 5-second shot, I only need to shoot it for like 2 seconds because I can slow it down. But then moments like the exit or the first kiss or things like that, I can choose for them to be slow motion if I want to, and they still look pretty good in a 24 frames timeline, not slowed down. So it's 4K 60, and that's why a lot of people are testing 4K 60 when it comes to overheating with this camera, is because it's something that certain filmmakers use constantly. Another thing I use all the time, and I've got specifically been hired for jobs because I have these capabilities, is open gate. And with the S1ii, there are high frame rate open gate modes, which is like the biggest thing I've been asking for. On the GH7, I think one of the biggest things missing, and especially because it's something that the GH5 had back in the day. It was only 8-bit, but the GH5, I don't know if most people know this, but it had 4:3, 60 frames a second open gate. So it's good to be back, y'all. RIP GH5, also welcome back GH5. Next up, I think, is just going to be the great low light performance. Like, yeah, the GH7 is okay, the S5 II is great, but again, first dances, receptions, reaction shots in the crowd where it's not as bright, open dancing where you might want some slow motion. I am forced to use my GH7 when I would most of the time rather use my S5 II, except for the fact that it's locked at 30. And I've been using 30 frames a second and getting 80% slow motion for a while. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. And so having the option to hit the dance floor with some 1.8, 1.4 full frame primes, get some low light that's as good or better than the S5 II, is just going to be so nice for these really challenging environments that I find myself in. So another one for the S1. Another one for the S1. Whatever. Well, the body design isn't that different from the S5 II. The S5 II has a great body design, and so the S1 II, having most of the great things about the S5 II and the GH7, which are my main two cameras right now, combined, I think is great. We've got better flaps, we've got tally lights, we've got the sensor shield, which is the first time I'm ever going to have something like that on a camera, and again, chaotic wedding environments, you're sometimes changing lenses really fast. That's going to be a really nice feature to have for me, because, oh my God, some of my sensors are so dirty, and me, like most people, I probably don't clean them nearly enough. And the fact that, this is kind of a downside because battery life now, but I love the fact that all these batteries are compatible. Everything is transferable. The CF Express, the SD, the batteries, they all are interchangeable. And the cameras work similarly enough that I'm not feeling like I'm missing out on anything because I had to upgrade cameras, like sometimes happens with Sony or Canon, where certain cameras have certain features and others don't. I feel like with Panasonic, most cameras have most features nowadays, which is really nice, except for the GH6. But hey, what are you gonna do? But listen, I have my concerns, I have my issues, just like anybody. I'm worried about the heat. I'm worried about things. I've got two different fans here that we're gonna test out and use. One is this Ulanzi fan, which I know is probably not the best option unless there's some kind of padding, thermal pads going on. And then another popular one people have been using is this tiny little guy here. It kind of just is slots behind the. So why am I not worried about heat that much? Well, I am, but I have some solutions in mind. We got the fans. We have SSD as an option. I have an idea that I've had a couple buddies test that seems to work out well that I'll talk about more in the future, where you use a lot more SD cards rather than CF Express cards. But I'm also just taking these short clips. The longest clips, I think, like Vu talked about it. He talked about like the longest clips you're taking is like the processional, you know, when the people are walking in, the bride walks in, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, you can take and are taking shorter clips. For me, it's probably Indian weddings, where there is some longer takes and some pretty brutal stuff. Like the Bharat, I think, is like the biggest thing for me, where it's like just 30 minutes of dancing, crazy stuff. And sometimes I'm second shooting for this guy a lot. But sometimes he'll leave, fly the drone, and he'll be like, get a consistent shot. And so maybe that's turning the fan on high. Maybe that's, hey, bro, is it cool if I switch to 24? We'll see. We're putting this against Indian weddings and the Chicago summer heat. And so I'll be reporting back any findings. But outside of those super specific scenarios, the way I've been thinking about it is the S5 II is already a sometimes camera for me. Like sometimes I can use it if I'm gonna put an APS-C lens on it. Sometimes I can use it if I don't need 4K 60. Sometimes I'll use it because maybe 30 is okay and I can slow it down to 24. And that's fine. So, you know, sometimes it's okay because like maybe I'm just doing photos, or maybe I want that super blurry 1.8 prime depth of field kind of look. And so maybe the S1 II also ends up being a sometimes camera, where in the most challenging, most demanding, most heat intensive environments and situations, I'm still gravitating for a reliable camera like the GH7. Maybe. But that means it's still a sometimes camera. But the sometimes that is overheating, I imagine is going to come up for me at a lot less than the crops in 4K 60. Because if I'm going to be honest, like that is an ever pervasive issue unless you completely kit out an entire APS-C lenses with it, which I think is valid and I think would work really well. And I've been a proponent of as well with my review on the Sigma 17-40 or 18-50. But there's sometimes just no substitute for that super shallow depth of field, that great depth, that great low light that a full frame sensor at the full readout can provide. And so again, yeah, maybe the heat limits this camera in some situations, but for me, I think those risks are worth the uncropped 4K 60 because, again, I have used the GH7 over the S5. Like, I actually was looking back at some old wedding clips recently, and even after I had the S5 II, I was not still using the GH7 for weddings. I was using the GH6 for weddings, which is pretty wild. And so if I can put up with contrast to detect autofocus for weddings and some of the quirks of the GH6 over the S5 II with its phase detect autofocus just for those frame rates, then that shows you how important those frame rates are to me. So anyway, guys, that is my thoughts on this camera. Maybe I love it, maybe I don't. But for what I do and bringing this high-end kind of look to some of the people I shoot for and with and to my wedding clients, and also just my work in general, while also being a great photographic tool, having great build quality and image quality. Yeah, I'm really curious how this camera performs going forward, and I'll definitely be covering a lot of that on the channel. So anyway, this is a relatively unscripted video. You know, just some notes, little things like that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know, yeah, I'm excited for the camera. There's been some behind the scenes stuff going on with it that I might talk about in a future video. But yeah, anyway, Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. And you know if you're subscribed already, I'll be seeing you when I see you. Take it easy, y'all.